58 Democrats voted against a resolution to honor the life of Charlie Kirk and condemn the brutal assassination.
So got some breaking news here, Chad, that Hakeem Jeffries, the leader of the Democrats, the House Democrats, just voted yes. He's a yes on honoring Charlie Kirk, and AOC just voted no. So there is the divide right there within the Democratic Party on a resolution that really should be bringing everyone together. Thank you, Chad Pergram, live on the Hill for us with that breaking news. Let's bring in Shannon Bream now. Give us your take on, this is a resolution that is very simple, very easy to understand, and there it is. It's final now.
So just so that we're clear, they won't vote to honor the life of Charlie Kirk, but Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives voted to pass major legislation explicitly named in the honor of St. George Floyd, but they couldn't bring themselves to vote for legislation to honor the great man that Charlie Kirk was. House Democratic leadership at the time, that included Nancy Pelosi and the Congressional Black Caucus, framed the legislation as a direct tribute to Floyd's life and legacy. This guy who held a woman at gunpoint when his homies were invading her home and went to jail 8 times. And Pelosi had the audacity to state that it would honor George Floyd's life by transforming policing. Yes, because if there's anybody whose life we need to honor, who we've turned into a martyr, it's Georgie Floyd. So without further ado, here's what AOC had to say.
Today, the Republican House majority brought to the floor a resolution honoring, quote, honoring the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk.
Good.
Charlie Kirk's assassination was a horrific and vile attack and incident of political violence.
Okay.
And condemning the depravity of Kirk's brutal murder is a straightforward matter. One that is
it really? I'm surprised.
Especially important to help stabilize an increasingly unsafe and volatile political environment where everyday
brought about by you guys
people feel more at risk. We can deeply disagree and come together as a country to denounce the horror of this killing. And it is not a license for the abuse of power and whitewashing of American history.
Oh, American history. You're going to tell us about that, huh? I'm all ears. And now, here comes the denigration of Charlie Kirk. You start off with 35 seconds of stating that the act itself was horrific, but here comes the justification.
Today's resolution only underscores the majority's recklessness by choosing to author this condemnation and honoring on a purely partisan basis, instead of uniting Congress in this tragedy with one of the many bipartisan options to condemn political violence and Kirk's murder, as we did with the late Melissa Hortman.
And George Floyd, as I mentioned before.
Instead, the majority proceeded with a resolution that brings great pain to the millions of Americans who endured segregation, Jim Crow, and the legacy of bigotry.
Here comes lies. Whatever follows is going to be completely out of context, and I brought Charlie Kirk in to rebut them personally because they're going to try to frame what he said in horrific ways, or she is.
We should be clear about who Charlie Kirk was. A man who believed that the Civil Rights Act that granted Black Americans the right to vote was a mistake.
And here are the receipts in terms of what he actually meant versus the framing that they're giving you.
Opportunity, you would get rid of the Civil Rights Act?
No, I think you should have a one-page bill that says that racial discrimination based on race is illegal and will not be tolerated in the United States of America. Most Black Americans don't support is men and female sports. Would you agree?
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. No, for sure, right? Believe it or not, the Civil Rights Act is now being used to keep men playing in women's sports. So the Civil Rights Act was used to help Black America originally. Totally get that. But now the way it was written is that any claim of identification, so someone says, I'm a woman, therefore I can compete in your volleyball team, they come in with a civil rights claim. And so what we're saying is, no, it should be specified to racial, not gender, all that other stuff. And there were all these other provisions as well.
I just want you to note how they frame Charlie Kirk as being against the Civil Rights Act, as if he's some unrepentant racist, when in reality he just wants a much more simple condemnation of racism and to say that it is illegal. But this is the way that the Democrats play the game and try to get people to believe that Charlie was a horrific person.
Who, after the violent attack on Paul Pelosi, claimed that, quote, some amazing patriot, unquote, should bail out his brutal assailant.
And here comes Charlie with exactly what he actually said.
Looking at Politico.com, I'm looking at the New York Times, I'm looking at all these places, and there's a little bit of mention here. For example, Politico says top Republicans reject any link between GOP rhetoric and Paul Pelosi assault. Of course you should reject any link. Why is the Republican Party, why is the conservative movement to blame for gay schizophrenic nudists that are hemp jewelry makers breaking into somebody's home, or maybe not breaking into somebody's home?
Do you notice how they're trying to portray the schizophrenic, gay, hemp jewelry making man as MAGA, that they want to attribute it to this man, the same way that they tried to, Jimmy Kimmel tried to attribute without any doubt Charlie's killer to MAGA, because this is the game that they play. Everything is a lie. It's a misrepresentation.
Why are we to blame for that exactly?
Exactly.
And
That's
why
fair.
is he still in jail? Why has he not been bailed out? By the way, if some amazing patriot out there in San Francisco or the Bay Area wants to really be a midterm hero, someone should go and bail this guy out. I bet his bail's like $30,000 or $40,000. Bail him out and then go ask him some questions. I wonder what his bail is. They're going after him with attempted murder, political assassination, all this sort of stuff. I'm not qualifying it. I think it's awful. It's not right. But why is it that in Chicago you're able to commit murder and be out the next day? Why is it that you're able to trespass, second-degree murder, arson, threat of public official, cashless bail? This happens all over San Francisco, but if you go after the Pelosi's...
He is saying unequivocally that he condemns it, that it's not correct what happened, but he is wondering why the soft-on-crime DAs are holding this man in prison, setting a very high bail for him, when at the time San Francisco was letting you out for everything but multiple homicides. And even then, I bet you that you could get out with $1,000 bail. But Charlie is not saying bail this man out because he deserves it, because he's a hero. No, he's saying, why is he being held for bail when nobody else in San Francisco needs bail at any point in time? If somebody wants to bail him out and ask him some questions as to why he did it, maybe we can come up with some answers instead of trying to turn the hemp jewelry making schizophrenic gay nudist who was also here illegally from Canada into MAGA.
Accused Jews of controlling, quote, not just the colleges. It's the nonprofits, it's the movies, it's Hollywood, it's all of it.
So the woman who has drawn great ire for being so pro-Palestine is now accusing one of Israel's biggest supporters of being an anti-Semite. Let's see what Charlie actually said.
I don't know what part Elon is saying is the actual truth. So let's go through this. Again, it's double negatives and misuse of the word disinterested. It's a strange tweet that Elon pinpointed on here. But the first part is absolutely true. Let's go to this. Jewish communities have been pushing the exact kind of hatred against whites that they claim to want people to stop using against them. Now, I don't like generalizations. Not every Jewish person believes that. But it is true the Anti-Defamation League was part and parcel with Black Lives Matter. It is true that some of the largest financiers of left-wing, anti-white causes have been Jewish Americans. They went all in on woke, and it wasn't just ADL. It was some of the top Jewish organizations in the country that have done that. In fact, we have seen this with the recent retreat of Jewish donations that are no longer going to be administered to colleges, right? Mark Rowan, Leon Kopperman. Can we get that full list? It's very powerful. The part of the, so that's totally true. And by the way, Tucker Carlson reinforces this. So I'm going to it was quite a day on the internet. Tucker Carlson mentions that Jewish Americans have primarily been financing cultural Marxist ideas. We said this, by the way, last week, and people came after us.
We were on top of it.
We actually said it in a different way. We said, I'm glad that Jewish Americans are reconsidering their financing of cultural Marxism. And people misunderstood it intentionally and slandered us as being anti-Semites. But listen to this. Tucker Carlson is completely correct by saying this, that the philosophical foundation of anti-whiteness has been largely financed by Jewish donors in the country.
Is that an anti-Semite? Pointing out where funding is coming from. But again, they're trying to take one grain of fact and extrapolate it out into him being the leading anti-Semite, despite the fact that he was devoutly pro-Israel. Bad people. This is why people get shot, because of lies like Alexandria OCasio Cortez is stating.
His rhetoric and beliefs were ignorant, uneducated, and sought to disenfranchise millions of Americans.
Amazon wanted to move their headquarters to a borough of New York, and she galvanized people against that and complained that Amazon was being given money from the local government, despite the fact that it was in fact a tax break. This ignoramus, who was an economics major at Boston University, I believe, did not even know what a tax incentive was.
Far from the working tirelessly to promote unity, unquote, asserted by the majority in this resolution. It is equally important that Congress does unite to reject the government's attempt to weaponize this moment into an all-out assault on free speech across the country. All in the name of Charlie Kirk. President Trump and the FCC are now cynically threatening to shut down ABC and any outlets who give airtime to the administration's political critics. This is a disgusting attack on the American people and the very First Amendment rights that define us as a country. It is also the ABC Corporation's responsibility to refuse to embolden and participate in this corruption and escalation of censorship. We continue to pray for Mr. Kirk's family and loved ones in the wake of this terrible act. I am thinking especially of his children and his wife, whose grief cannot be measured. And with that, I yield back to the gentleman.
The idea that the Republicans are now engaging in censorship after they got Roseanne Barr canceled. Barack Obama personally apparently called Bob Iger, the head of Disney, and demanded her removal over a joke. And now when the shoe's on the other foot and Jimmy Kimmel says something categorically untrue and the affiliates are up in arms, then the Democrats are screaming censorship. You can see all over the place how hypocritical the Democrats are regarding this degree. Tim Walz even said,
I think we need to push back on this. There's no guarantee to free speech on misinformation or hate speech, and especially around our democracy.
Look, I don't want the government getting involved in regulating speech at all. I think this was kind of a self-own by the FCC because Jimmy Kimmel probably would have been let go anyways because ABC now has a valid reason for dropping somebody who was costing the company lots of money, whose ratings are declining. But that's the side of the point. The point here is that the Democrats vote to honor George Floyd, St. George Floyd, the patron of home invasions and sticking a gun to the belly of a woman and dying of a fentanyl overdose. And now they don't want to honor Charlie Kirk because he's such an evil man. These people are hypocrites. They're liars. They are at best misguided, but I don't believe that it's that because you have to be reasonably intelligent in order to attain that position to begin with. But they are just going out of their way to frame Charlie in a manner that's factually untrue. And that's politics, I guess, but it's disgusting, and it's why I moved away from the Democratic Party. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Peace.